Good day, sanibonani njani. My name is Umpumelelo Kamshengo Shabalala Uchaku Tonga Lamavusi Mavusi Amhlophe Officer Nakuba Kuyena. So on today's video, I just want to speak about this question I've been getting a lot. The question is in regards whether is it advisable to come and teach in China when you have a permanent post or position in South Africa. So this is a win-win question or a win-lose question because it entirely depends ukuthi situation yakho ikanjani back in South Africa. If lapho permanent corner, maybe you are getting a lot of money, where you are permanent, you're working for a good company, you're working for the States, maybe in a good position, and is it advisable to then leave that working environment and come and embark on a journey lana in China? I just made some important points maybe one can look at if they want to make this big decision. For instance, if you're not employed in South Africa, then obviously you can come to China because, you're unemployed. If you're on a contract in South Africa and you're uncertain of your future, then obviously you can come and work at this side as soon as possible, and that's much recommended. And then the important things you need to look at first is how much you make. So if in South Africa you are making maybe let's say 14,000, 15,000 after everything, versus here in China where you're gonna make maybe after deductions and everything, after you've paid everything per month, you can save up to 25,000 up to 30,000 here in China. So those are just some of the differences when it comes to being in China. But then of course you're not going to be having things like a house, you're not going to be having things like a car here in China, because you're going to be taking DD, because you won't be staying permanently here. So you must also look at that. It's okay, I'm getting 30 or 25,000 extra per month that is just sitting there. But if I was back in South Africa, maybe I'll be driving Golf 6, maybe I'll be driving Golf 7, minus 10,000 on installments. So you need to look at those things realistically. How much would I really be saving? Maybe even if you budget, okay, let's say I'm buying a car in South Africa, let's say I'm minusing 7,000, I'm paying Ibondi, you're looking at these things, kanje, maybe you're gonna be left with extra 15,000, which you can save monthly. So that's how you can look, okay, how much am I making here in China, and then how much am I currently making in South Africa if you are based in South Africa. So those are things you must look at. And also another important thing is what degree do you have? For instance, here in China, there's a transition in the structure of ESL hiring and so on. So I see in the near future there won't be a need for people with only a bachelor's degree. They're gonna require a teacher's degree. They're gonna require someone with a PGCE over a bachelor's degree. So if you have a bachelor's of arts or a BSc alone, you're not gonna stand a chance, because currently in China, some cities already, some provinces already are only hiring teachers, like professional teachers, and they're only hiring people with a qualification such as the PGCE. And also like go Middle East or Saudi Arabia or Qatar, they hire strictly people with teaching qualifications or a PGCE. So if you have a degree in South Africa, you have a bachelor's degree, and you're not maybe planning to do a PGCE and embark on an education journey, so that's some of the red flags you could see coming within a few years. Imagine you're working for the Department of Social Development in South Africa, you're earning 25,000, your take home is probably 20K, and then you resign because you wanted to get a job here in China. You work for 1 year in China, and then China says, we no longer want people with a bachelor's degree in arts or social science. We now want people with EBEd. We now want people with a PGCE. Then what? You left a permanent job. Yabo. So it depends how you look at these things. And then obviously, if your degree is not related to teaching, I see maybe in the next 3-4 years here in China, you're gonna have a problem if you don't have a teaching qualification. So that is something to think about before you jump and come into China. So you can also have mhlambe PGCE, or if you're umuntu wenza teaching, then you are quite safe because you can move from China to South Korea to Saudi Arabia, to anywhere where they require a teaching or a teaching degree. And then also, how old are you? In South Africa, kunale age restrictions when it comes to employment, especially in the government sector. They mostly don't want people who are over 35 who's beharish in some of the departments. So you also need to look at that. Okay, am I 30 already? Am I 32? Am I 33? If I go and work to China, in China, then maybe to go back in South Africa and look for a job and then work in South Africa once I'm done learning. So that's another thing you must look at that is very important. How old are you? Are you still 25? If you're still 25, you can do another 4 or 5 years in China and then move back to South Africa sooner. Then you have like a 5-year gap back in South Africa. So that's another take. And then what assets do you have? If you're working in South Africa, you're permanent, what asset do you really have? Maybe you already have a house. Maybe you already have a car that's paid up. Maybe you have some small businesses that are paid up. You have maybe a property. So those are also some of the very essential things you need to look at. What assets do you have? If you have nothing, then you can pack your bags and leave. If you have some assets, okay, it's paid up, or you have an apartment, it's paid up. What else do you really need? You need to look at assets now, and also what assets are you planning to have? How many kids do you have? If I come and work into China and leave my permanent job in South Africa, am I going to come with my kids to China, or am I going to leave them behind? Are you ready for a few years while making a lot of money and then going back? And then also the benefits of China. Most of us, like China, we look at the benefits in terms of cash, but we ignore a lot of benefits South African government actually do have for its employers. For example, most of like China, you're going to get a medical aid. You're going to get a medical aid, but you're not going to get things like life cover. When something happens to you here, you have to cough up 200, 300,000. If you want to take a life insurance, you have to do it at the side with another company of which you're going to pay a lot because you're outside of South Africa. So those are just some of the differences. Even though you're here in China, but you end up paying extra things on the side, irrespective of yabo. So those are just some of the benefits. Or you can look at, okay, if I'm in South Africa, I'm paying a minimum amount. Government is already paying for this. Mang resign or retire, I have a fund of which pension fund which I give every month back in South Africa. But here in China, you work, you done, you go back home. And then so yeah. And then also, do you have a business plan? Maybe if you are working maybe in South Africa, you are currently permanent, you're working for a company or at the government, you're not doing anything else, you're not having any business, nothing, not planning, and you're more coming close to the age of 35, I suggest maybe you look at having a business plan. If you have a business plan, then you can move into China, because some of the people who are working in China, they would resign maybe back in South Africa after working for the Department of Education for maybe 3-4 years. And then that's it, and then I'm feeding my son or my child, and then I have no other plan. I live on a mouth-to-mouth basis monthly. So they just pack up their bags and leave. And the first thing when they get into South Korea or China, they start selling cows and so on. Business. So do you have a business plan other than embarking with China? You book business opportunities, having their own clothing products, using China and contacts. So do you have a business contact? This is important because South Africa, let's say you came into China, you work for 5 years. You worked for 5 years here in China, and then you build properties in South Africa. you build imqasho, you do ama rentals. For instance, after 5 years usunama rentals, maybe 20 bachelor rooms. So 20 bachelor rooms can give you like a minimum of 2,000, 2.5, depending on the location, per month per room. So you're about like 2.5 times 20. How much is that? So you are ready to settle Mali and just go back in South Africa, and you're gonna have at least a based income based on the business opportunity or investment that you did while you're working here. So you need to look at that if you want to move into China also. And will this sustain you? Will this sustain you for the few months or year even after being here in China? So these are just some of the key points if you want to leave your permanent job in South Africa and come work this side. So thank you for watching. Do remember to like, subscribe, comment. I don't know if I'm loud enough, but then yeah, if Louis Bambile, change of seasons this side, he wins here, so nane nebhesinyana namhlanje. But yeah, take care. Thank you.